Hello and welcome to the North Shore Drive podcast. I'm Chris Carter. He's Brian Batko. We're your Steelers writers. And as always, this is your show from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. You can find this show on every Monday, Wednesday, Friday on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to this channel to get all of those Monday, Wednesday, Friday episodes, as well as all of the daily content that comes out from all of our sports writers here at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. And as always, this show is brought to you by Edgar Snyder Associates. You know they help with workers' compensation as well. Call them today at 1-800-94-EDGAR. And remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. More on them later. Brian, Friday Night Lights is tonight, and I see you are in the Friday Night Lights spirit. I was about to say Christmas.
Booby Miles.
Booby Miles got the Permian jersey on.
Mojo.
You and I have talked about this. I hate the movie. I love the show. But Friday Night Lights practice, always a special one. I think the atmosphere is cool, but it's also like usually a nominal, like padded practice. It's like after the first go around, this is the one where I think a lot of guys have to prove or not prove who they're going to be this season.
Yeah, it's kind of the closest thing the Steelers have to an intra-squad scrimmage like some teams do, and like you certainly see in the college ranks, considering they don't have any preseason games. Chris, for the first time in, 3 decades, you don't have to worry about that covering Pitt. So, yeah, I mean, it's it gets very spirited, and last year I think was maybe the most spirited I can recall. I mean, Patrick Queen and Najee Harris going at it, Jaylen Warren and Elandon Roberts going at it. I mean, it was getting borderline barbaric out there in backs on backers in that end zone. So yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be another energetic, chippy practice tonight. And I mean, hey, I think the coaching staff and the front office, they're always evaluating practices with a grain of salt. But if you're going to put any stock into the performances of these guys in one of the practices more than others, it's probably tonight at Latrobe Memorial Stadium with a lot more people watching and, yeah, a lot brighter lights.
Indeed. And part of what Mike Tomlin also talks about is like the timing of when they practice, right? Like he wants to, the reason he likes afternoon practices is because that's gets your body ready to play in the early afternoon, like most football games are done on Sundays. And then there's also evening games. And so this is simulating getting ready for that type of a situation. So Mike Tomlin likes to do those little things during training camp. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I want to talk to you first about Aaron Rodgers when we get into this, because Aaron Rodgers, I thought, had his best day on Thursday, yet a practice. The offense kind of struck back at the defense after the defense pretty much whooped them on the first day in pads. But of course, as everyone will tell you, you need to see consistency. So I think the biggest thing is now that they've had a good practice without the pads on, they need to win. So they need to win a lot more when the pads go on tonight. What are the things that you've seen that have impressed you or not impressed you about Aaron Rodgers, or things that you might expect to just work itself out because of his experience?
Yeah, I agree. I do think he was more sharp on yesterday's practice. I mean, there were still some throws that got airmailed, whether it was, in team drills or, the one-on-ones. But sometimes it's hard to really evaluate those one-on-one throws because you don't know if a guy ran the right route or what they were trying to accomplish working that very specific, specialized area of route running sometimes. So, yeah, I mean, I've had people asking me, like in the chats and whatever, I mean, do you need to be worried about Rodgers in the offense, or specifically Zach Frazier and Rodgers with the snaps? And it's like, I don't think so. I think it's way too early. If you start seeing that pop up in preseason games, then okay, maybe it's more than a blip on the radar. But yeah, I think this is a feeling out process. And I know Mike Tomlin has been quick to say he's still new to them, to which I would reply, well, you guys did let him take his good old time getting to the team and signing with the team. So, that you kind of knew that was baked into the deal. And I'm not saying they're using it as an excuse, but like it just rings a little bit hollow for me when I hear that. So because they were also saying in minicamp that it's not a big deal that he's missing it, and maybe it won't be by week 1. But yeah, I mean that's part of the equation here too. Rodgers himself said, that he wants to see that clear picture when he breaks the huddle pre-snap, and he's still got it a little bit fuzzy at times. But I think if you can't trust a 41-year-old who's the oldest player in the league and has accomplished probably the most accomplished player in the league too, I don't think that's a stretch to eventually see that picture clearly. Then there's no point in having him around. So I don't think they have too many concerns that way.
I don't think so either. I think there's a lot of patience that needs to be had. Something else that I wrote about for my skinny post was the complexities that the Steelers are throwing in on both sides of the ball. There's a lot of things that they're doing. Aaron Rodgers is a big reason why they're doing as much as they're doing on offense, as far as moving guys around, motions, getting guys to different parts of the field, because they're expecting his expertise, his field vision, his leadership on the field. Jonnu Smith even called him a coach on the field, to be a factor for them and to be able to see through things and give them opportunities that they haven't really been able to cash in since Ben Roethlisberger was here. Maybe even not even with him, because Ben Roethlisberger, I think, was more of the gunslinger than Aaron Rodgers was the field general, at times in their careers. So I think that's a big part of it, though, is that takes time to coordinate. That takes time to get used to, the details that are needed. And both DK Metcalf and Jonnu Smith acknowledged that after Thursday's practice, even when that was a practice where they looked better than they had. So I do think it's a patience thing that needs to happen, because there's a lot of new pieces, and this is a system that a lot of these guys are still adjusting to. But I do think that, the more you get through practice, I think the sharper we get. But I also think that the defense deserves credit for being a reason why they're so off, because this defense is aggressive and flying right now.
Granted, when you asked him about that, he said the defense has been playing pretty soft so far in practice.
Right? I was like, what? Oh, okay, Aaron. I remember that answer.
Yeah, so let's pull at this thread for a second here, Chris, because you asked me at the start, what have I seen that I liked or didn't like, or what I have or haven't seen from Rodgers. Let me know what you think, because I think we've both been at every practice but one, and we did not miss the same practice. So combined, we've been at every practice. Have you seen him try to push the ball downfield much? I mean, I know that, sometimes in these practice settings, the defense is trying to keep a lid on it. But, I mean, Russell Wilson certainly didn't mind uncorking them last year when he was out there. Mason Rudolph, even Will Howard, they've tried some deep shots. I feel like Aaron has been a little bit hesitant to really let one fly, down the left or right sideline so far. What say you?
I agree. He's been hesitant. I thought that Thursday was the first time I really saw that from him in like a team setting. And, I've seen him throw those in one-on-ones, but there were finally some deeper shots from him, and some of them connected, some of them didn't. But I do think that he seems to be like working up to them. It's interesting to see, like, Aaron Rodgers, you'd think that this guy doesn't need to work up to throwing a deep ball, but that's his process. And I think that's part of what the maturation there. And the Steelers are going to need that deep ball if they want to compete in the AFC North. By the way, if you want to place any bets down on who wins the AFC North and you're confident about the Steelers, go to FanDuel right now. They give you odds of plus 500. So you can win some good money if you put money down on the Steelers to win the division. They got the third best odds behind the Bengals at plus 270 and behind the Ravens at minus 160. But Steelers at plus 500 only on FanDuel. Go place your bets there today. They also sponsor the show. But Brian, to your point, that's another thing that I think needs to be seen, and not a whole lot. I don't think that's going to be, they're not going to be as dependent on the deep ball as Russell Wilson was, because as Russell Wilson got found out eventually, it was layups and 3-pointers. I think there's going to be a lot more mid-range jumpers with Aaron Rodgers' game, but you still need to have the deep ball in your game. Otherwise, they'll start realizing that's not what you're going for, and that they'll adjust to that too.
Especially when you have somebody like DK Metcalf on the outside, who's as big and as straight line fast as anybody playing that position on planet Earth. And we've seen him make some acrobatic catches, but those have been more in the short yardage goal line area. And then yesterday, I don't know if it was Aaron Rodgers' longest completion of camp so far, which of course is always subjective, but that was a deep crosser over the middle to DK. It wasn't really a go ball down the sideline like we were accustomed to seeing George Pickens do in his time here. Yeah, I mean, hey, not to paint with a broad brush, but I do feel like one of the criticisms of Rodgers, certainly last year with the Jets and maybe even at the end of his time with the Packers, was very risk averse, wants to protect the ball, which is good, but not necessarily, putting himself among the league's elite in terms of throwing the deep ball and giving his receivers a chance to make those explosive plays. So, you're right. Maybe he is, kind of waiting to pick his spots with that. I can't think of a better time to do that and get some oohs and ahs than the Friday Night Lights practice at Latrobe Memorial Stadium. So perhaps that'll be foreshadowed, and we'll finally see some of that tonight.
It will be interesting to see. To your point about being risk averse, Aaron Rodgers holds the NFL all-time lowest interception percentage at 1.4% of his career passes. That is insane. But that's
highest
a big
touchdown
part.
Interception ratio too, right?
And highest air yards per attempt, highest passer rating, also the most sacks ever by a quarterback. So lots of things that he holds on to as all-time records in the NFL. The Steelers are going to want to use that. We got a lot more to discuss here on this channel, so do keep with the North Shore Drive podcast. This episode brought to you by Edgar Snyder Associates. Reminder: Edgar Snyder Associates can help you with workers' compensation claims. You need to know who decides when you're better, who decides when your treatment's over, who decides when your benefits are over. It's always the insurance company's doctors. If you want someone on your side to help you fight against that, you need Edgar Snyder Associates. Call them at 1-800-94-EDGAR. They'll fight for the workers' compensation rights that you deserve. And remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. We'll keep it here with the North Shore Drive podcast. We're back here with the North Shore Drive podcast. Chris Carter, Brian Batko, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, breaking things down, getting ready for Friday Night Lights. This segment also is brought to you by Goldberg, Persky, and White. If you are diagnosed with mesothelioma or lung cancer, call your local attorneys at Goldberg, Persky, and White. For over 40 years, their firm has represented thousands of lung cancer and mesothelioma victims. Call 1-800-COMPLEX or visit gpwlaw.com for a free consultation. Brian, let's skip forward to tell people what they should be looking forward to for Friday Night Lights, because things that we saw in the first padded practice, Kaleb Johnson got beat up pretty bad in the backs on backers drill by Malik Harrison. He's going to get another shot. Friday Night Lights is always an opportunity for redemption. I've seen, like, TJ Watt was not good at backs on backers when he started. I remember when he first came to in 2017. That was actually my first training camp that I covered, and I remember watching him not doing well, but it was because he didn't have any moves to win one-on-one, and James Harrison had to show him a rip move to help him beat even the likes of Xavier Grimble. So that goes to show you how much a player can grow even from training camp practices. But on top of Kaleb Johnson, who everyone's kind of looking at, who are other people that you're looking at to see how they perform in some of these more physical drills on Friday night?
Well, just with Kaleb Johnson first, I mean, from watching him the other day, the first day in pads, I don't know how much of it's really a technique issue versus just being a 21-year-old body who still needs to grow into his frame a little bit, going against grown men like Malik Harrison. So I think there will come a time where Kaleb Johnson, improves his play strength a bit and, bulks up a bit, but, you can't do that overnight. So he'll try to bridge the gap with technique and tenacity as quickly as he can. I'll go to another rookie who I'm going to have my eyes on tonight, Jack Sawyer, because I think this is a drill that's tailor-made for someone like him who, coming out of Ohio State, the knocks on him were, how much wiggle does he have to get to the passer? How much lateral quickness and agility does he have if he has to drop in coverage? You don't have to worry about that in backs on backers so much, especially if you just want to run through a guy's face, and he's got the size to do that. However, I'd like to see him, rather than going against, a fellow backup tight end, like he's a backup edge rusher, I want to see him get Darnell Washington and see if he can get off that block and get through the wall of Darnell out there. That's always one that, because they used to. This is the cool thing about watching the maturation of young Steelers in these physical drills is you see Darnell Washington graduate from the guy who's trying to earn his stripes against Alex Highsmith to now guys like Jack Sawyer trying to earn their stripes against him.
It is really cool to see. I also think it's really funny how Juan Thornhill has the smoke for Jonnu Smith. Everybody got the smoke for Calvin Austin and guys like that. No one wants any smoke with Darnell Washington. I have not seen anyone try to be like, Darnell, you were okay. You and me are okay. After the play.
Not Darnell, but I mean, maybe Chuck Clark will try him because he was coming up swinging on DK Metcalf, which I mean,
Metcalf got some inches on him. You're right.
That was like, I had people, heard people behind me saying, like, why would anybody go at DK Metcalf? Like, if you value your life. But yeah, I mean, Chuck Clark is he's new here. He's trying to set a tone himself, I think, as a veteran who's been around the block. And anytime, this is kind of what happened with Juan Thornhill and Jonnu Smith, too. As a competitor who's on the smaller side, I can relate to this throughout my entire life. When someone bigger than you is trying to big bro you, that's when you need to. That's when you start to like get a little ornery. You get a little red, and I think we saw that play out with both of those safeties who. I guess Thornhill's right about this. He's a little younger than Jonnu Smith, but Chuck Clark is, considerably older than DK Metcalf. I don't think he took too kindly to getting big boyed in the middle of the field there.
Certainly didn't. Speaking of the big boys, let's talk about the line. We've been talking a lot of the playmakers. Broderick Jones and Isaac Seumalo have been seen at practices, but they're not participating in team drills yet. I don't know if they're going to introduce them just yet in this practice either. Maybe Broderick, because his injury was considered day to day, and Mike Tomlin has now seen him for at least two, maybe three practices. No, I think it's two practices now that he's seen him kind of do the warm ups and do everything. And maybe he gets the go tonight. I don't think Isaac Seumalo, because he was on the NFI list, and so that might be something different. Do you expect to see Broderick Jones tonight? And if you do see him, what do you expect to see of him, considering he's one of the biggest question marks on the offensive line?
No, I think they're going to be safe with him. When you're a starter who gets a soft tissue injury like that, I mean, I almost feel like they take it very slow and very cautiously until you really have to move into another gear. So whether that's preparing for a preseason game, as they'll be doing next week, or maybe even the second preseason game, I don't know. I have no idea really what the timetable is for Broderick Jones, because it didn't look like much initially, but then he didn't practice after that. But then Mike Tomlin made it sound like he was going to be back out there doing everything the next day, and then he wasn't. So I'm really not sure, Chris. And I suppose this is the kind of stuff we talk about in the regular season all the time, too, is sometimes even the players themselves and the medical professionals involved don't know, because you have to see how things respond on a daily basis with soft tissue injuries.
You're very right. That's really tricky, and like you said, Roman Wilson told us, though I don't think he had not a soft tissue injury, but he told us yesterday his rushing back to try to get back to action is what kept him out for longer last year. So
he also said he felt pretty good at some point last season, to which the Roman Wilson bashers are going to say, "See, he felt fine, and the Steelers still didn't want to use him."
Yeah, he did say at some point. He didn't really specify when, like if that was week 8 or week 16. Yeah. But still, to the point of him rushing himself back and it causing his injury to sort of get worse. That's what they're not trying to have happen to the left tackle. They're hoping finally gets to be a left tackle this year and be a big part of this offensive line stepping up. I think it's also going to be interesting to see the interior guys like McCormick and Frazier going up against guys like Harmon and Black and Equale. I've been really impressed by Y.A. Black in the first day in pads. I thought he really showed out. I thought Derrick Harmon did solid for a first day in pads. I honestly think his more impressive practices have been without pads, ironically. So need to see more from him there, but certainly that's going to have a lot of attention and eyes. I know backs on backers is the fun drill because we see them run at each other and it's the high volume collisions, but the line drills, I want to try to find those guys tonight and get a closer look at who's winning those reps.
Yeah, it's actually maybe not that ironic, because I do think Derrick Harmon looking better in the unpadded practices, because I think, relatively speaking to the other D linemen, he's a little lighter on his feet than some of these big guys as well. Mm-hmm. And I had somebody with the Steelers tell me, like, they already think Harmon's probably the second best interior pass rusher that they have, behind Cam Hayward, of course, but essentially already further ahead in that area than someone like Keanu Benton, who is going into year 3. But, he was a second-round pick. Harmon's a first-rounder. There tends to be a little bit of a talent gap in that. So, yeah, I do think Harmon is, he's got that in his game. But, yeah, he needs to round it out and continue to prove it every day. I mean, Keanu Benton, maybe he hasn't taken the leap that a lot of people have expected, but he's already proven a certain amount at the NFL level. Guys like Harmon and Black, who I do give Black a lot of credit for being noticeable, even as someone who he's not really going to have the best get off in the world at his size. And, the poor guy's practice jersey is like 2 sizes too small, I think. His belly's always hanging out the bottom of it. And he's not necessarily like a sloppy looking guy, but he's 6'6", 340. You only have so many places you can put that, Chris. So he's he's running around out there bare midriff, but it also is popping out a lot because he's getting his hands up there and deflecting passes. So good on Y.A. Black for making an impact.
Absolutely. Lots to discuss, lots to see. We will be on hand at Friday Night Lights practice. Brian, myself, and I believe Ray is going to be with us. We're going to
have our intern Jeff Middleton there.
Oh, shout out Jeff. That's right. Jeff will be joining us there. Get all of our coverage of that here on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to this channel to get all of our episodes and content of the North Shore Drive podcast and all the writers here at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. From Chris Carter and Brian Batko, thanks for watching us. And a reminder, this show is brought to you by Goldberg, Persky, and White. If you're diagnosed with mesothelioma and lung cancer, call your local attorneys at Goldberg, Persky, and White. They have over 40 years of experience. Their firm has represented thousands of lung cancer and mesothelioma victims. Call 1-800-COMPLEX or visit gpwlaw.com for a free consultation. Thanks again for tuning in.
Put movie in.
Exactly. There you go. Some Friday Night Lights humor. We'll keep it here, and we'll have some updates from Friday Night Lights practice. Stay here with the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette and the North Shore Drive podcast. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all the sports coverage from the Post-Gazette that we have to offer, visit post-gazette.com.